Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses Semicon India 2024, says the country's semiconductor sector is on the verge of a revolution. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump engage in a fiery presidential debate, spar over economy, abortion and immigration. The US and its allies, the UK, France and Germany, impose fresh sanctions on Iran for supplying Russia with ballistic missiles. Iran threatens retaliation. And the US state of Louisiana braces for Hurricane Francine to make landfall. Mandatory evacuations ordered for all coastal residents. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated Semicon India 2024 on Wednesday. The three-day event is being held at India Expo Mart in Greater Noida in the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. It has a theme of shaping the semiconductor future. Semicon India 2024 will be on till the 13th of September. The conference will showcase India's semiconductor strategy and policy, which envisions making India a global hub for semiconductor. Addressing the event, Prime Minister Modi said that India's semiconductor sector is on the verge of a revolution, with breakthrough advancements set to transform the industry.
सेमीकंडक्टर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैसिलिटी लगाने के लिए 50% सपोर्ट भारत सरकार दे रही है। इसमें राज्य सरकारें भी अपने स्तर पर और मदद कर रही है। भारत की नीतियों के कारण ही बहुत कम समय में 1.5 ट्रिलियन रुपीस से ज्यादा के इन्वेस्टमेंट इस क्षेत्र में भारत में हो चुके हैं।
Prime Minister Modi emphasized on the connection between democratic values and technology.
टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ जब डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज जुड़ जाती हैं, तो टेक्नोलॉजी की पॉजिटिव एनर्जी बढ़ जाती है। वही अगर टेक्नोलॉजी से डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज हट जाती है, तो वही टेक्नोलॉजी घातक बनते देर नहीं लगती। इसलिए चाहे मोबाइल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हो, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हो या सेमीकंडक्टर्स हो, हमारा फोकस एकदम क्लियर है। हम एक ऐसी दुनिया बनाना चाहते हैं जो संकट के समय भी रुके नहीं, ठहरे नहीं, निरंतर चलती रहे।
During the event, India's Prime Minister, accompanied by Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, toured the Semicon exhibition at the venue. More than 800 exhibitors from 24 countries are taking part in it. The event will feature top executives from leading global semiconductor companies and will unite international leaders, firms and experts from the semiconductor industry. Addressing the event, India's Electronics and Information Technology Minister Ashwini Vaishnav highlighted the country's vision of becoming a semiconductor hub.
After many attempts, finally, it was under our Prime Minister's visionary leadership that we succeeded in getting the industry to our country. Within the first phase of our mission, in a very short time frame, 5 semiconductor units have been approved. Construction is rapidly under progress in the Micron unit, the Morigaon Tata unit, construction has started, and the other 3 units, construction will start very soon.
The minister spoke about a plan for gathering the right talent to achieve the same.
Development, friends, has been a key part of the Semiconductor India program. We have committed to develop a strong talent pool of 85,000 engineers and technicians in the next 10 years. And we have delivered on a promise. For this purpose, already 113 universities, academic institutions, and R&D organizations have been tied up where semiconductor-focused course curriculum is being taught, and the course curriculum has been designed by the industry participants, so that is very relevant to what the industry wants.
Joining me is Professor Manoj Chaudhary. Professor Chaudhary is the Vice Chancellor of Gati Shakti Vishwavidyalaya and Management Council member of Semiconductor Laboratory India. Professor Chaudhary, welcome to DD India. Now, first off, tell us more about Semicon India 2024. What's the thought behind it?
The thought is very simple, that as India makes strong steps and definitive steps into semiconductor manufacturing,
Right.
the entire ecosystem of the companies are today there, right? We have from 24 countries, as you already highlighted, the companies that are representing fabs, companies representing equipment makers of the design tools, the design houses, the chemicals, gases, everything that is required for semiconductor sector in the ecosystem, not only to make a semiconductor chip, but also in terms of system and where it is device that is going to be used. So it is a complete ecosystem that India is focusing on, and Semicon India today is a reflection of that, with a strong statement by our Honorable Prime Minister and by our Honorable Electronics Minister outlining how India is pushing its journey into semiconductor manufacturing in the country.
Professor Chaudhary, for the benefit of viewers joining us from India and around the world, what does India hope to achieve in the field of semiconductor? Is there a timetable in mind? I mean, where does India see itself, say, 5, 10, 15 years down the road?
As Honorable Electronics Minister also highlighted, 60 years back, we started discussing about the need to have semiconductor manufacturing facilities in India. Today, it has become much more a need, because the strategic nature of semiconductors, they go into automotives, they go into electrical vehicles, they go into transportation sector, consumers, mobile phones, every single space is semiconductor. And without semiconductor, there is no further technology movement possible. India's digital public infrastructure is also based on significant leverage of semiconductor. Therefore, in order to be a strong, self-reliant country that is putting tremendous focus on defense manufacturing, putting a lot of focus in becoming Atmanirbhar in all of the aspects, having a very strong talent pool who is already doing a lot of design houses already in India, a lot of design companies are there. Therefore, both the market is there, aspirational India, there is a growing manufacturing base that Honorable Prime Minister talked about, there is a reformist government that is in place with predictable policies. Therefore, with 5 companies already announced, right, setting up of facilities in Gujarat, Assam, and elsewhere as we go ahead. So I see that these things are going to take a very significant progress now, because our electronics imports, so far semiconductor imports have been very high. Already today it was announced, and as we know that by 2030, we are expecting semiconductor market in India to grow to $100 billion, which will perhaps exceed the oil import that we are doing. And therefore, it is both strategic, it is both needed for us in order for our country to become a developed country. Such a critical technology like semiconductors, which will be needed in defense, space, transportation, railways, aviation, all sectors. And therefore, a foundational technology like semiconductor has become most crucial. And with the kind of investments that are coming, with the kind of government incentives that are happening, the kind of semiconductor curriculums made in the universities, and the talent pipeline that is getting created, I am very, very hopeful that India is pursuing very strongly, and we shall achieve great result by 2029, 2030.
Indeed. Professor Chaudhary, in the last few years, we've heard of this phrase which has been cited by many countries in the West, China +1. From a business perspective, commercial perspective, how many foreign companies do you think have either committed investments in India or want to set up semiconductor facilities in India, and where?
Yeah, 5 of them, as we specifically have already announced the investment in India. Micron being the first one, followed by Tata Electronics along with PSMC. Then we had Tata Semiconductor setting up a facility in Assam. Then we had CG Power and Renesas setting up another facility in Gujarat. And recently the case, there are already discussions that we are hearing between Tower Semiconductor and Adani Group possibly partnering to set up further facilities. So with government incentives and predictable policies, as I highlighted, stable policies, everybody today thinks that India is the destination. As Honorable Prime Minister also mentioned, when chips are down, India is one place that you can put your bet on. And therefore, with the right kind of talent availability, right kind of ecosystem, the governmental support, the right kind of engineering talent availability, I think the time is right, and we are making a very, very fast movement with lot of gati and lot of shakti.
And before we close, Professor Chaudhary, I want you to also talk a bit, if you will, about the point that you mentioned about talent pipeline in terms of talent for design, fabrication, manufacturing, and so on. Are there any policy parameters in place to generate, to have a predictable, outflow of talent over the next several decades in terms of curriculum or training or any other ancillary area?
The first time in India, after this India Semiconductor Mission decision and announcement that we shall produce 85,000 engineers and technicians in the semiconductor sector over the next decade, specific semiconductor-related curriculums were prepared, and it has been implemented in many of the AICT, through AICT in many of the institutions. Several companies are coming forward. Lam Research, for example, with its program, AMD, and many companies are coming forward and partnering with the institutes, universities like us, and different IITs in order to take this whole journey of building semiconductor talent pipeline, which is industry aware, industry relevant, and easily and most conveniently and suitably employable in the industry. And therefore, this journey, which is at the top researcher level, today most institutes are having PhD program in semiconductors at master's, bachelor's level, technician level, all aspects. We definitely see that there is a surge in the semiconductor related courses. There is a lot of demand from the semiconductor companies. Even today when Renaissance was speaking, NXP was speaking, Semi was speaking at the inauguration ceremony, almost every company emphasized a great need and desire to hire more and more talent in India for the sector. And therefore, we have a tremendous opportunity to generate new employment, skilled employment, and a high level degrees and qualifications that is required for the semiconductor sector, and that is what we are currently doing. Railways, for example, is today growing very significantly. All the new trains are modernized like Vande Bharat. They require a lot of electronics components. So even in Gati Shakti Vishwavidyalaya, which is a specialized university in transportation and logistics sector, we are putting tremendous emphasis on the semiconductors and electronics that may be used for railways, that may be used for aviation sector, and so on.
Professor Chaudhary, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. US pop star Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris for president after debate with Donald Trump. And Pope Francis concludes his visit to Timor-Leste. And the United States observes the 23rd anniversary of the 11th September 2001 terror attacks.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The second edition of an international conference on green hydrogen is being held in New Delhi on Wednesday. The conference is a platform for showcasing products, services and technologies to a global audience. Through the National Green Hydrogen Mission announced last year, India expects to position itself as a hub of green hydrogen and its derivatives. Since the inaugural edition, the Indian Green Hydrogen Mission has achieved significant progress. With a target of establishing 5 million tons of annual green hydrogen production capacity by the year 2030, India's Green Hydrogen Mission represents a significant step towards realizing India's ambitions in the hydrogen economy. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi told the International Conference on Green Hydrogen about the country's achievements and outlined its ambitious goals to become a global hub for green hydrogen. He called for a need for global collaboration. He called for advancements in technology and joint efforts to address climate change.
Already launched the National Green Hydrogen Mission in 2023. We want to make India a global hub for the production, utilization, and export of green hydrogen. The National Green Hydrogen Mission is giving an impetus to innovation, infrastructure, industry, and investment. We are investing in cutting-edge research and development.
U.S. presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump took part in a televised debate ahead of the 5th November election. It could have a significant impact on the elections as polls show a tight race. Heading into the debate, there was a question as to how Harris and Trump, who have never met, would greet each other. And then it all started with a handshake. Here are some takeaways from that debate. First up, we have illegal immigration. Trump hammered at the Democrats' weak spot on immigration. Trump claimed that Harris and Biden allowed millions of people pouring U.S. from prisons, mental institutions, asylums, while Harris said Trump is a convicted felon. He used race to divide the American people. Next up is abortion. One of the most intense exchanges was on abortion. Trump insisted that he pushed for the end of the federal right to abortion, want individual states to make their own policy, while Harris refuted that claim, saying that Trump was telling a bunch of lies and his policies insulting to the women of America. Next up, we have weaponized justice. And talking about weaponized justice, Trump and Harris accused each other of conspiring to weaponize the Justice Department in a bid to go after their enemies. Trump argued that his indictments are all result of a conspiracy cooked up by Harris and Biden. Harris shot back by pointing out that Trump has promised to prosecute his enemies if he wins a second term. And now to the economy. Now, in the debate's opening minutes, Trump and Harris went to battle, and one of the issues that is top of mind for voters, the economy. Harris said that Trump would favor billionaires and corporations over anyone else if he comes to power, and planned a sales tax that would hurt ordinary Americans, while Trump said U.S. President Joe Biden's government ushered in the highest inflation in U.S. history, and he denied that he wants to impose a sales tax. Moving on, we have China. Now, Harris said Trump ended up selling American chips to China to help their military, and Trump argued that Harris has no policy and Biden-Harris administration has kept his tariffs on China in place. The Biden government this year intensified U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods ranging from electric vehicles to semiconductors. Moving on to Russia-Ukraine conflict, one of the most heated policy discussions came when Trump and Harris clashed over how they would handle Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Trump said that he wanted to wrap up the conflict as soon as possible. Harris argued that what Trump really wanted was Ukraine's quick and unconditional capitulation. Now, Donald Trump told journalists afterwards that it had been his quote-unquote best debate.
Say the truth. I say the truth. If I lose votes or gain votes, I don't care. But this was my best debate.
And for her part, Kamala Harris addressed her supporters in Philadelphia after the debate got over. Harris said it was a quote-unquote good day, but reminded the crowd that 56 days remained until the election, emphasizing that there is still a lot of work to do. Joined by her husband, Douglas Emhoff, Harris thanked attendees for their efforts and stressed the importance of winning Pennsylvania, a key swing state that President Joe Biden carried in 2020.
Debate stage, we are not going back. We are not going back. And so we know what we're fighting for. We know what we stand for, and that's why we know what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the dignity of all people. We're fighting for the dignity of work. We are fighting for middle-class families. And so we've got some work to do because, listen, I think that we think today was a good day, and it kind of was. But we have 56 days to go, and guys, we're still the underdogs in this race. It's tight. We have got to win Pennsylvania, and we are going to win Pennsylvania.
American pop icon Taylor Swift extended her support to Kamala Harris following her presidential debate against former President Donald Trump on Tuesday night local time. Swift announced her announcement in an Instagram post declaring that she will cast a vote for Harris in the closely fought U.S. election on the 5th of November. Take a look at this report by DD India's Deeptanshu Kashyap.
Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris for President of the United States. The global megastar broke her silence on the current state of American politics, voicing support for Harris over Donald Trump for the White House. She did so in the minutes following a televised presidential debate that saw the candidates face off for the first time, which the singer said she tuned into. Swift wrote on Instagram, "I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is a steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm, not chaos." The megastar's endorsement is a huge plus for Team Harris. Democrats are, as expected, relishing the momentum this debate has brought to the presidential campaign.
Look, she is a cultural icon. Something big has happened in the world in terms of the energy and vibrancy she's associated with, the optimism she's associated with. That was a big deal as well. But even without that, this was an extraordinary night for the campaign and for the American people.
Her speaking out is a big darn deal. Why a missing zone? Berks County's own, Pennsylvania's own Taylor Swift. That's a huge endorsement.
Taylor Swift has supported Democrats in the past as well, including President Joe Biden in 2020. Deeptanshu Kashyap's report for DD India.
Meanwhile, police arrested some protesters who marched in the streets of Philadelphia during the first presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. The nationally televised debate took place just 8 weeks before the 5th November election and days before early voting will start in some states. The encounter is particularly important for Harris, with opinion polls showing that more than a quarter of likely voters feel that they do not yet know enough about her. All right, joining me is my colleague Akshay Dongre. Akshay, what were the big takeaways in your estimation from that debate?
Well, the debate that started with Kamala Harris making the opening statements, has a lot of key takeaways when it comes to the foreign policy that the two candidates of the presidency of the United States of America are looking at. Now we're looking at not just trade, economy, but also, this election is unique because there are two active conflicts that are brewing across the world. Now we have the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where the debate was also centered around also the Israel-Gaza conflict that has been going on. When it comes to the approach of the two leaders regarding these two conflicts, it was quite different. And in fact, when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we saw Trump openly stating that had he been the president, the conflict, or rather the war, would have never broken out, whereas Kamala Harris has, we have seen that time and again, it was some sort of personal attack on Donald Trump and his policies that were also being done. In fact, the statement that Kamala Harris made about Putin eating him for lunch was also quite controversial as far as the debate is concerned. But when it comes to the Israel-Gaza conflict, we have seen that Donald Trump accusing Kamala Harris, going rather personal, that she hates Israel, she doesn't want to support Israel, and if she becomes the president, there will be no support coming from her, and Israel will be gone. So, whereas Kamala Harris has also taken a lot of pot shots at the foreign policies of the two leaders. So this was the foreign policy aspect where the two leaders, not only resorted to criticizing each other, but also belittling each other when it comes to the economy. Trump kept on making the claims that when he left the presidency, U.S. was one of the best performing economy in the world, whereas Kamala Harris made it a point that the administration that the Biden government received from Trump was in a state of turmoil, because of bad decisions that he had made. The tax cut for billionaires had become a point, as well as the difficulties that the middle class due to inflation had become one key agenda of Kamala Harris's attack on Trump, whereas he had been talking at a personal level when it comes to the economy, stating that Kamala Harris has no plan, in fact, for the U.S., as well as stating that all the plans that Kamala Harris is now proposing are somewhat copy of the economic plans that he had made during his first tenure. So these were key issues besides the abortion issue, where again Trump had made some controversial statements, even stating that if Kamala Harris wins the presidency, there might be laws that will allow allow people to even exterminate, as the word he used, to execute even the babies who were born, whereas it was refuted by even the moderators. But a lot of bickering, a lot of belittling, and a lot of exchanges took place throughout this debate. Both the leaders resorted to personal attacks along with policy questioning that took place. But it remains to be seen that how the next debates are going to be like. The debate that started with Kamala Harris's opening statement ended with Trump, and it seems that it was somewhat of a stalemate, and both the sides are now claiming victory after the debate.
All right, I will leave you there, Akshay. Thank you, appreciate it. Akshay Dongre reporting there on the U.S. presidential debate. In more news from the U.S., the 23rd anniversary of the 11th September 2001 terror attacks is being observed on Wednesday. Nearly 3,000 people were killed when hijackers crashed 4 aircraft into 2 towers in New York City, the U.S. Defense Ministry, and a field in southwestern Pennsylvania on the 11th of September in 2001. A terror organization called Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden, claimed responsibility for the attacks. The attacks were a direct assault on the core of the United States mainland, an unprecedented event in American history. The repercussions were devastating and extended far beyond the U.S. borders. Effects rippled around the world and through generations as the U.S. responded by leading a global war on terror, which included invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq. All right, now take a look at what else is making news around the world. Australian police arrested 33 people for assaulting, obstructing or hindering police arson and blocking roads as they clashed with police in Melbourne outside a defence exhibition venue. Around 24 police officers were injured in the clashes. As Pope Francis was departing from Timor-Leste, locals spread a traditional woven scarf on the road to receive the Pope's blessings as his motorcade passed. The Pope was on a 3-day visit to Timor-Leste, a Catholic-majority country, marking a historic second visit by any Pope since Pope John Paul's visit in 1989. Flash floods caused by a torrential downpour in Morocco claimed 18 lives, including 3 foreign nationals. At least 4 people were reported missing in the aftermath. The floods caused widespread damage and destruction affecting the water and power supplies, roads and telephone networks. A part of the Corolla Bridge on the Elbe River in Germany's Dresden city collapsed early on Wednesday morning local time. So far, there are no reports of any casualty or fatality. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Mexico's Senate approves judicial reform amid protests. Death toll from Super Typhoon Yagi in Vietnam rises to 141. And in Maldives, 2 ministers resign after they were suspended for making a derogatory remark against India's Prime Minister. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses Semicon India 2024, says the country's semiconductor sector is on the verge of a revolution. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump engage in a fiery presidential debate, spar over economy, abortion and immigration. And the U.S. state of Louisiana braces for Hurricane Francine to make landfall. Mandatory evacuations ordered for all coastal residents. Russian forces began a significant counter-offensive on Ukrainian troops who smashed their way into western Russia last month, trying to occupy some territory. Russia said that its forces advanced by 1,000 square kilometers in eastern Ukraine despite continuous attacks by Ukraine's forces at the border in western Russia, ruling out any ceasefire talks with Kyiv. To West Asia now, a UN convoy carrying workers for a polio vaccination campaign in Gaza was held at gunpoint at an Israeli military checkpoint. A spokesperson for the UN Secretary General called the incident the latest example of the unacceptable dangers. The convoy was later released. UN officials confirmed their staff returned safely to a UN base.
Yesterday's incident involving a UN convoy stopped by Israeli forces is the latest example of the unacceptable dangers and impediment that humanitarian personnel in Gaza are experiencing. The convoy was carrying 12 staff members on their way to support the polio vaccination campaign in northern Gaza. Its movements were fully coordinated with Israeli forces and all details provided ahead of time. When the team was stopped at the Al-Rashid checkpoint, they were informed that Israeli forces wanted to hold 2 UN staff members in the convoy for questioning. The situation escalated very quickly, with soldiers pointing their weapons directly towards our personnel in the convoy. The UN vehicles were encircled by Israeli forces and shots were fired. The convoy was then approached by IDF tanks and a bulldozer, which proceeded to ram the UN vehicles from the front and from the back, compacting the convoy with the UN staff inside.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Tuesday demanded an overhaul of Israeli military's conduct in the occupied West Bank as they decry the fatal shooting of a U.S. protester, which Israel said was an accident. Israel's military said on Tuesday that its initial inquiry found that it was highly likely that its troops had fired the shot that killed her, but that her death was unintentional. It regretted the incident. U.S. President Joe Biden told journalists that the fatal shooting of an American protester last week was, quote unquote, apparently an accident.
Deep restrictions on the use of long-range weapons by Ukraine.
We're working that out right now.
Mexico on Wednesday approved a constitutional reform to allow voters to elect judges. The reform was approved with 86 votes in favor and 41 against. With the passage of the reforms by the upper chamber of the country's legislature, Mexico becomes the only country in the world to elect all of its judges. The move was being widely opposed domestically as well as internationally. Earlier, demonstrators protested outside the Mexican Senate as lawmakers resumed discussions on judicial reforms. Mexico's Senate resumed debate at an alternative location after protesters broke into the Senate chamber mid-session. Mexico's major trading partners, the U.S. and Canada, have warned the changes could undermine the trade pact of the three countries and negatively impact investments. The reform also proposes reducing the number of Supreme Court justices to 9 from 11, shortening their terms to 12 years and cutting required work experience from 10 to 5 years. Meanwhile, violence in the western Mexican state of Sinaloa sparked fear of intra-cartel war as one soldier and 2 civilians were killed on Monday in a shootout. The unrest has erupted in the wake of the arrest of trafficker Ismael El Mayo Zambada in July. The veteran cartel leader Zambada alleged that a senior member of the Los Chapitos, another faction of the cartel, kidnapped him and then flew him to the United States against his will. Calm had returned by Tuesday morning local time, but some shops had closed by midday. Algeria's presidential candidates who lost out to incumbent Abdelmadjid Tebboune filed appeals to the Constitutional Court on Tuesday, contesting the provisional result of the vote. Abdelali Hassani, who heads the moderate Islamist party, the Movement of Society for Peace, was first to submit his appeal. Youssef Aouché, head of the centre-left Socialist Forces Front, followed suit, accusing the electoral authority ANIE of quote-unquote forging the 7th September election result. Tebboune had been widely expected to breeze through the election and was focused instead on securing a high turnout. Venezuela's opposition leaders said that their candidate Edmundo Gonzalez will remain a very clear voice, pushing for change in his country despite fleeing to seek asylum in Spain. Exiled opposition members Antonio Lezama and Leopoldo Lopez said that Gonzalez could also still return to take office on 10th January. Lopez called for oil and personal sanctions to be applied to his government by the U.S. and the European Union. Ledesma insisted Gonzalez's flight from the country would strengthen the cause. Meanwhile, Venezuelan exiles, including Gonzalez's daughter Carolina, gathered outside Spain's parliament on Tuesday as Spanish lawmakers debated a symbolic motion from the main opposition party to recognize Gonzalez as the winner of the election. The motion is expected to be approved on Wednesday. And now to weather updates from around the world. Tropical storm Francine became a Category 1 hurricane as it churned towards the southern U.S. state of Louisiana on Wednesday. Governor Jeff Landry declared a state of emergency. It will bring 10 to 20 centimeters of rain, potential tornadoes and damaging winds to much of central and eastern Louisiana. Authorities called for a mandatory evacuation of residents in coastal communities. Schools were closed and officials distributed sandbags. Louisiana was the site of one of the most devastating hurricanes in U.S. history, Hurricane Katrina, which killed more than 1,800 people in the year 2005. A small bushfire in Southern California quickly grew to over 5,000 acres, threatening nearby suburban neighborhoods. A brushfire authorities say was unintentionally caused by a spark from heavy equipment used by an Orange County Public Works crew. One person suffered smoke inhalation. In Vietnam, the death toll from Super Typhoon Yagi has risen to 141, while around 60 others are still missing. Heavy rains brought by Typhoon Yagi have triggered deadly landslides and floods throughout northern region of the Southeast Asian nation. There's also been severe property damage and disruption to business and industry. Local authorities said functional forces are actively engaged in relief and rescue operations in the affected provinces and cities. The international community has not only praised Vietnam's efforts, but is also coming together to support the country in these efforts. International organizations, including the UNDP, the UNICEF and WHO, are collaborating with the Vietnamese government to conduct field surveys and assess the damage and support needs in affected areas. Based on these assessments, specific and practical support plans will be developed. Floodwaters from the Red River and Duong River continue to surge in Vietnam's capital Hanoi, submerging many areas of Red River's alluvial plains. Thousands of local residents have been urgently evacuated to the safer places. The neighborhood officers go check every small alley with a handheld speaker. In many residential areas, the water has almost reached the roofs of houses along the river. According to local residents, this is the highest water level ever seen over the last 16 years. Moving on, the UK economy has stagnated for the second month as manufacturing output dropped sharply. Economic output has shown no change in month-on-month terms in July as it did in June. This according to data from the Office for National Statistics. The figures are not likely to sway expectations that the Bank of England will cut interest rates once more this year, probably in November rather than on 19th September. Modest growth in the services sector, which expanded by 0.1% in July, was offset by declines in manufacturing and construction. In more business news, European markets rebounded at the open on Wednesday while the Eurozone government bond yields fell. Investors were on hold ahead of the U.S. economic data later in the session and the European Central Bank policy meeting on Thursday. London's FTSE 100 gained almost 0.1% despite official data showing the UK economy posted zero growth again in July. Germany's 10-year yield, the benchmark for the Eurozone bloc, was down 2.5 basis points at 2.12%, which is a fresh one-month low. Italy's 10-year yield was lower by 2.5 basis points at 3.5%. The gap between Italian and German bonds, which is a gauge of the risk premium investors demand to hold Italian government bonds, stood at 137 basis points. Equities at Asian markets slipped Wednesday following a mixed day on Wall Street as worries about the world's top two economies offset optimism that the U.S. Central Bank will start cutting interest rates next week. Meanwhile, the yen hit its highest level in 9 months. The Indian equity benchmark indices climbed after opening lower on Wednesday amid weak cues from global markets ahead of key economic data release on Wednesday. In some more news from South Asia, in Maldives, two ministers who were suspended for making derogatory remarks against India's Prime Minister have resigned. As per local media reports, Mariam Shiuna and Malsha Sharif resigned, citing personal reasons. They were suspended in January in connection with derogatory comments directed at India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well as the Indian people on social media. The comments had stirred a diplomatic row and a social media campaign to boycott Maldives, resulting in mounting public concern and significant pressure on the government. Earlier, India had contributed as the leading source market for Maldives tourism for 3 consecutive years until 2023. India's President Draupadi Murmu presented the National Florence Nightingale Awards 2024 to 15 nurses and midwives for their exceptional service and dedication on Wednesday. The award consists of a citation and 1 lakh rupees. These nurses and midwives have played a seminal role in promoting the health and well-being of the nation. They face challenges such as epidemics, climate change and conflicts, and yet remain committed to providing help, thereby playing an important role in supporting the healthcare system. 12th May is observed as International Nurses Day to commemorate the selfless service of Florence Nightingale and her efforts to integrate the nursing science in nursing education and thereby bring an important change in social welfare. The award was instituted by the India's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in the year 1973. And now take a look at what else is making news in India. The Government of India has disconnected more than 1 crore mobile connections and blocked around 2.27 lakh mobile handsets for the involvement in cybercrime and financial fraud. The Sanchar Sathi initiative of the Department of Telecommunications identified these connections. The department, in collaboration with the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, has initiated several measures to enable spam-free quality telecom service with high-speed data. The Delhi High Court has served notices on National Anti-Doping Agency in connection with a wrestler Bajrang Punya's suspension. The wrestler had approached the court challenging his suspension ahead of a championship in Albania. The next hearing will take place in October. India's Minister of State for Defence Sanjay Seth inaugurated the India Pavilion and visited a DRDO stall at the Land Forces 2024 exhibition in Melbourne, Australia. The Indian Army's Master General Sustenance, Lieutenant General A.S. Ojala, was present on the occasion. DRDO scientists briefed the minister about the systems and technologies showcased in the pavilion. The Indian Navy's P-8I aircraft, led by Captain Ajay Kanwar, reached Darwin, Australia for the 16th edition of Exercise Kakadu 2024. The Indian Navy will participate in the multinational exercise with 30 nations with a theme regional cooperation through trusted and proven partnerships. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Mauricio Pochettino named new US men's coach ahead of the 2026 Football World Cup. And England to field 3 debutants in its playing 11 against Australia in the first of a 3-match T20I series.
Welcome to Jaipur.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to all the news in the world of sport with my colleague Deepika. Deepika, over to you.
Thanks and good afternoon. Let's first begin with the latest update that we're tracking for the viewers from the world of football. Well, it's a new milestone for England captain Harry Kane as he earns his 100th cap during a Nations League encounter against Finland. The leading goal scorer said that he's inspired by Cristiano Ronaldo's 901st goal. England's captain Harry Kane earned his 100th senior international cap with his trademark appearance in the Nations League match. The 31-year-old Bayern Munich striker, who received a golden cap before kick-off and sported a pair of dazzling golden boots, broke Finland's gritty resistance with a dipping right-footed strike in 57th minute and has now become the 10th player to win 100 caps for Team England. Before going into the match, Kane referenced Ronaldo after the 39-year-old Portugal captain scored his 901st career goal to help his side beat Scotland by 2-1 in Nations League.
Yeah, I think, I feel in really good shape. I feel both physically and mentally, at a peak in my career. And I think, just watching other players, like watching Ronaldo score his 901st goal yesterday and seeing him compete at, I think, 38 or 39 years old, just inspires me to play for as long as possible. I love this game. I love representing England more than anything.
Harry Kane also became only the third player to score on his 100th England appearance, although Wayne Rooney and Bobby Charlton only managed to hit the net once on their big nights. Harry Kane's brace against Finland on his 100th appearance means he's now on 68 goals for the Three Lions, followed by Wayne Rooney with 53 goals across 120 appearances, Sir Bobby Charlton with 49 goals across 106 appearances, Gary Lineker with 48 goals in 80 appearances, Jimmy Greaves having 44 goals in 57 appearances, Michael Owen with 40 goals in 89 appearances, Sir Tom Finney in 30 goals and 76 appearances, Nat Lofthouse with 30 goals in 33 appearances, Alan Shearer with 30 goals across 63 appearances, and Frank Lampard having 29 goals in 106 appearances. Harry Kane also led his team England with a 2-0 victory against Finland under interim manager Lee Carsley, which now puts them as joint top of the Nations League group stage. Sports Desk, DD India. US Soccer announced on Tuesday that former Chelsea manager Mauricio Pochettino has been named as the new coach of the United States men's team. The Argentine, who parted ways with Premier League side Chelsea in the month of May after one season in charge, will take the reins in the US ahead of the upcoming 2026 Football World Cup. The World Cup will be co-hosted by Mexico, Canada and the United States. Former Paris Saint-Germain and Tottenham Hotspur manager Pochettino joined Chelsea on a 2-year deal to replace interim manager Frank Lampard, but left the West London club after a turbulent campaign that saw them finish 6th. Now, Australia endured another disappointing game at the Asian World Cup as Graham Arnold's side were held to a 0-0 draw by host Indonesia. The Australians faced Indonesia in Jakarta, hoping to bounce back from 0-1 loss to Bahrain. They came close to scoring a victory when Nestroy Irankunda hit the post with a low drive in 33rd minute. But Arnold's side was unable to find a way past Martin Paes as the dodged Indonesians followed up their draw with Saudi Arabia on Thursday with another point. In cricket, England will field 3 debutants in its playing 11 against Australia in the first of 3-match T20I series at the Rose Bowl in Southampton. The England cricket announced on Tuesday that Jordan Cox, Jacob Bethel and Jamie Overton will be making their T20 debuts. Phil Salt will be leading the side in the absence of injured Joss Butler, who's nursing a calf injury. He was replaced by Overton in the T20I squad. Salt has consistently performed well in T20 matches. Salt's ability to score quickly will be essential for England's success in upcoming matches. The series will continue with the second T20 set for Friday and third one on Sunday. Play in Afghanistan's one-off test against New Zealand has been called off without a ball being bowled for a third straight day due to rain on the outskirts of New Delhi. The area has been deluged by steady rain over the last 2 weeks, and fresh showers early on Wednesday prompted match officials to abandon the play with toss yet to take place. The match is the first test to be played at a stadium in India's Greater Noida region that has only basic drainage systems. It has hosted 11 home limited over matches for the Afghans. In hockey, Australian hockey player Tom Craig has been banned for 12 months following his arrest during the Paris Olympics last month on suspicions of buying cocaine. Craig will serve at least half of the ban, which began on the 9th of September, with the remaining 6 months to be suspended if the player met conduct requirements. The 29-year-old was released without any charge, but was given a warning by a judge after French police detained him for allegedly trying to buy cocaine in Paris, days after Australia lost their hockey quarter-final at the Paris Olympic Games. So that was a quick wrap from the world of sports. Back to you.
Thank you, Deepika. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download it. And let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.